Welcome to Live from My Office Special Edition. They're all special. And this is Anything But Politics. If you're on the YouTube channel, hi, how are you? I know what you're thinking, Steve. There's something different about you. Can't place it. Oh, must be this. My Survive 2025 t-shirt and hat. You know, time is a-wasting. And if you haven't gotten yours in this attractive navy blue or this superb hat as well, go ahead and get it. That's the right thing to do. You can go to CochranShow.com, click on the link there, or CochranShow.com/survive2025 will take you there as well, and get them. And we have these apt gift cards. I think I had one here. Oh, yeah, here it is. An apt gift card. This is worth $50, which means you're basically getting your merchandise for free. You know what I'm saying? Apt gift card, $50 apt gift card, as long as supplies last. Our partners at Apt have given us a stack of these, and I will send one to you when you order your Survive 2025 gear. Anything But Politics is what we do early in the week, and it's just that. It's anything but politics. Everybody needs a break from politics, and before we got grinding away on another week of you suck, no, you suck, Anything But Politics is a way for you to get away from it. And my guest today is David Kerley, former CBS News anchor in Chicago and longtime ABC News award-winning reporter, anchor as well. And, of course, he was their space guy, their motion guy. And he turned that into what he's doing now on Substack, where he writes about everything that moves. And we'll talk more about that when he joins me in a second as well. And thanks again to Apt Electronics. If you're not already on our YouTube channel, you can go to Live from My Office, search that on YouTube, and it'll take you right there, and you'll see all of the podcasts that we're doing. Lots of fun stuff coming up, announcing a new live show that's going to mean a lot to you folks here in Chicago in the next week or so. We'll make that announcement. And later in the week, another Live from My Office full edition with a fascinating guest, I'm sure, as soon as I figure out who that is. Feel like they're going to be fascinating. So that's where we are, boys and girls. It's time for Anything But Politics with my guest, David Kerley. Enjoy this now. Here on Live from My Office. Welcome to Anything But Politics. Boy, a lot of people are talking about this podcast where it's the voices in my head. My friend David Kerley joins us now. We'll talk about what David's up to in a moment. But first, you look fantastic. Are you moisturizing? What's the deal?
No, I'm not. In fact, my wife gives me grief that I don't. I didn't even shave today. I mean, but you know, that's what happens when your beard goes gray. You can't tell, right?
I call this the distraction.
Yeah.
Yeah, because then it's not as much focus on this. Not the hat, the head. The hat, by the way, Survive 2025.
Yes, I know. It's quite the campaign you're under, and I think we all hope too. So.
Yeah, that's America's mantra. Yeah. So hang on, everybody. But we're not here to talk about politics, which you and I might normally do. Let's start with something you're doing on Substack, a place where I also write. And you can subscribe to David's column on Substack. I highly recommend you do. You write about everything that moves.
Transportation, planes, trains, automobiles, space. I call it the transportation transformation. You know, we've move into EVs, commercial space, supersonic jets are coming. So those are the things that interest me. We're not doing too well on the bullet trains. When there becomes something worth writing about, I'll write about bullet trains too.
Hey, would you mind a couple of stupid questions? The EV chargers. I would assume the holy grail of batteries is going to be the 1,000-mile battery. You know, they're 400, 500 miles, not so much.
I don't think so. I mean, what do you get? What's the distance you get in your gas vehicle right now? 300 miles, 280?
Probably, but there is that mental leap you have to make, right?
So I wrote about that. One of my first Substacks I wrote about, it was actually before Substack when I was writing a Facebook bulletin. It just takes a different mentality. This was about three and a half years ago. Ford let me have a Mach-E, and Volkswagen gave me an ID4. They were just coming out. This was just, you know, when the big manufacturers were just starting to release their electric vehicles after Tesla had kind of had the market and was go-go. And I took the Mach-E out to a space launch at Wallops Island, which is out in Nowhereville, Virginia, on the other side, out on the peninsula. And it's a long drive, and it's through rural Virginia. Different part of Virginia than what you might normally think of.
So not a lot of EV chargers on the way.
No, not at all. And then once again, this is 3.5 years ago. I charged it to 100% actually in the plug at the house, and it took like a day to get it to 100%, but I had 100% when I left. And then I went through Annapolis, and then you go down the peninsula to go to Wallops Island. And that's where there were very few chargers. And my mistake was, and I wrote about this, is it takes a different mentality. So I was at 78% or 80% when I got to Annapolis. There's a supercharger there at the Walmart. I should have gone to the Walmart and gone to 100%, which would have gotten me all the way to Wallops Island and back to that supercharger. But being a gas-powered guy for my entire life,
Sure.
I got 80%. I'm fine, right? And I mean, I limped. I knew as I was going down, I was in trouble because there were all these little level 2 chargers. There was one at a Harley Davidson shop for electric motorcycles that could work on the car. But I sat there for 45 minutes, and I think I got 3% on the battery. Got down to NASA, and they had a big generator. And I said, hey, can I plug my car in and charge? No, you can't plug it in because we need all the juice for everything else we're doing. And I stopped at a Ford dealer, and even a Ford dealer out there in rural Virginia had just a level 2 charger at the time. So all I'm saying is the mentality is just very different. You may need to take a charge much earlier. That's why I don't think you need 1,000-mile range battery.
So but it is that mental leap that we all would have to make.
Yeah. So we ended up last fall buying our first electric car 3 years after we tested a couple of them. And we went to Charlottesville. I live in the Washington, D.C. area. Could have made it all the way down and all the way back, but we were going to go do a little side trip. So in the morning, I went to a gas station. I put 20% in just as, had a cup of coffee. 10 minutes later, I'm on my way and everything's fine. It's just you have to think about it differently, and that's hard for us to do.
Well, you make a point because when you see these cars plugged in, I drove by a McDonald's yesterday in Minneapolis before coming back to Chicago, and there were several chargers there, and they were all full, and I'm thinking, how long are they going to have to stay at McDonald's before they can drive away? So has the charging technology gotten better where you're not there all day?
Yes, but not. It's a mixed bag because there are different levels of chargers, and cars can take a certain amount of charge, and they're not all created equally. The current car that we own won't take, there's a 320 kilowatt charger. I can't take 300. I can, I can plug in and I'll get it, but I'm not going to get it at its full rate. And the problem is it's adding up all these numbers and making sure it makes sense. When we got this car, I took a trip with my son. We went down to North Carolina, and we just decided to go at the end of, it was like mid-afternoon on a Saturday. And I didn't plan out the trip. You can on the car ask for where the charging stations are.
Okay.
And we decided to go get dinner, which was like this 20-minute. He wanted to get Cuban food someplace in North Carolina. And by the time
and by the way, if you want great Cuban food, North Carolina's your spot.
It actually was very good.
I'm sure it was.
But by the time we got there and whatnot, we had, it was like 20 miles of, 8 miles off and 6 miles back.
Sure.
And by the time you get back on the highway, we're down to it on the charger. We shut off the air conditioner. I'm doing lift and coast, and that is range anxiety. When you're lifting and coasting, you're just trying to...
You're like Apollo 13 at that point. Turn everything off.
Yeah, I've never died in an electric car. You just need to be smart about it and think about it and take a charge when you can take a charge.
So don't look for the 1,000-mile battery as my next big investment.
I would not, no. I honestly think the range... that we're going to end up somewhere between 3 and 400. Like the car I have has an extended battery and it's supposed to be 310 miles. I think that's plenty. I don't know that it's like your gas car. I think my car, I could do 220, 240 or something in a car. You gotta plan. Here's the other thing. If you're not in a hurry, it's easy because you can stop and get a meal. Hit the supercharger.
Sure.
Just find the superchargers that are gonna give you 10, 15, 20% in, a matter of minutes.
The thing you put in your house, the overnight, plug it in, the overnight it updates the computer, but it also charges, obviously. Does that give you a full charge overnight?
It can. There's actually anybody who has just purchased or an electric vehicle, I would highly recommend. I'm not going to remember his name now, but if you do a YouTube search for Canadian Professor EV Battery Health, this guy studies how to take care of a battery. He mostly wants us to use the car batteries after you're done with the car in a big block for a utility and to capture wind and solar power. And so basically, if you keep a battery healthy through its life, it'll be more use later. I now do the same thing on my phone that I do in my car. And his deal is don't run the battery down and then charge it all the way to 100%. Live between 30 and 70 or 40 and 80. And those charges, even though there are more of them, is better for the battery. And he has a chart where you can see that, you know, if you charge all the way and all the way down, the battery health kind of goes like this. But if you do this 40, 80, 30, 70, you know, you get this slight drop off.
Look at people learning. People are learning from this podcast. That's the last thing I need.
So I charge it to 80%. A lot of utilities, I'm not going to, actually, why not? My utility is, I mean, they're trying to make money and I get it. They're offering me they want to help the grid. So charge between midnight and 5. And you do this all on your app. Makes perfect sense. I'm all for it. I do charge between midnight and 5. They'll offer you a lower rate if you charge between midnight and 5 a.m. in the morning, but they'll charge you twice as much during the peak hours in the morning and the afternoon. So they're never losing any money, and I'm helping the grid. So I'm just helping the grid by charging overnight, and I didn't.
As my late father would say, that's how they get you. All right, I have a sad question to ask about, and that's the Air India flight. You wrote about this in I think it was your most recent Substack. The Air India flight, for those who forgot, the plane takes off and then crashes as it's taking off. And there seemed to be an indication recently that the fuel line was shut off. What do we know?
Yeah, the first thing I'd like to preface all this, a lot of these investigations into aviation, in the United States, the government does not own an airline. I mean, the CIA has their own airline and the Air Force has their own airline, but you know what I mean.
Uh-huh.
A lot of these countries own their airlines. Ethiopia owns its airline. Malaysia owns its airline, you know, so a lot of times there's conflict of interest between the investigators,
sure,
the airlines, and whatnot. What we know is that it's a very specific switch to turn off the fuel. It's not like a toggle up and down. You actually have to pull it out and turn it to shut off the fuel.
Well, you would hope it would be something you couldn't do accidentally.
Right. And the one point I've made to several folks is that there was a 1 second gap between the first switch being turned and the second switch being turned. I think I just did that in a second, right? Which to me suggests that it was not a technical issue. If there was a fuse or something else, and they're probably on different fuses and different systems anyway, so that you only lose one engine, not both at the same time. So you would expect them either to go out at the same time or whatnot. It looks like, it looks like what we saw, I think, in MH370. A pilot decided that they didn't want this aircraft to fly. They wanted it to crash, and that looks like what may have happened there. Nobody has said that. The Indians have not said that. But it's pretty clear that the communication that we've heard, why did you turn off the fuel? I didn't turn off the fuel. Well, if you turned off the fuel, would you admit you would turn off the fuel? And the other thing I noticed, and this has not gotten much attention, this is a 787. That's the first fleet in Boeing that my electric car reports back to the manufacturer of my car. I mean, they know where I drive. They know how fast I'm driving. They know everything that I'm doing in that car.
Sure.
787 was the first fleet where Boeing and the airlines and the engine manufacturers get a ton of data back, where the aircraft is continuously monitored. So I believe that Air India, GE, and Boeing knew that there was something with a fuel starvation of the two engines, even before, within minutes after that plane crashed.
So
the data was coming back.
God bless the fact that we don't have a lot of these, but we've had 2 or 3 big ones. You mentioned MH370, and it's another one that escapes my mind. Do pilots go through regular mental health testing?
It's part of their, with the flight docs, they're supposed to have that. And, but that doesn't mean you can catch everything. And
especially if somebody really wants to fake it.
Yeah, and who knows? I mean, MH370, it's pretty clear to me. I mean, the captain of that flight, on his home simulator had flights that was exactly like the flight that happened there. I mean, that yeah, it's not, it may not be definitive, but it's about as close as you can get.
The other thing I was going to mention from your Substack, I hope people take a look at this, when their 50th anniversary of landing on the moon, you did an award-winning longer piece on that. I hope people go back and click on that because that's cool. You can find it on YouTube as well.
Yeah, that's a video from ABC News. You know what I liked about that, Steve? Those were stories that you didn't necessarily, it wasn't just the story that you've always heard about. It's the little things that happen in that mission that are, I think, really cool and fantastic. I don't know if we had do we have the Penn, was the Penn story in there? So
I don't remember.
When they were getting back into the LEM,
yeah,
Buzz was the second guy to come in, and they still got their big backpack on, and it's a tight fit. You got to climb up the ladder, and then you basically crawl into the opening to get into it. And when he's standing up or moving around, his backpack or something hit a switch and broke the switch, and the switch was for the motor to go. When you want to flip it on, you flip it on to arm the motor, basically. And Neil Armstrong was very nice in saying, yeah, my colleague accidentally. And so what they did was they took a ballpoint pen apart. I don't know if this one will come apart. And they stuck the pen into the switch so they knew that it was armed when they were ready to take off again. I mean, little stories like that.
Yeah, and it's amazing when you think about Apollo 13 being the most famous. When you think about what was done without the use of the internet or YouTube videos, that the how-tos, these engineer, right stuff guys that were able to pull this stuff off, that's amazing.
Well, yeah, and I don't think this has more computing power in it than any of those Apollo capsules did.
All right, I'm going to give you 5 stories. We'll go through these quickly here, and these are anything but politics. Starting off with space junk. There was a story recently in the Harvard Review, and obviously I'm a subscriber, from an astronomer, and a legendary astronomer. And the story was about the stuff that's in lower...
company that has a kiss cam.
No, not that guy. This astronomer was a science nerd, thank God. And talking about the amount of space junk in lower orbit that has gotten to a point where if we don't clean it up, it's not if, it's when we're going to have a horrible collision that'll either take all the world's satellites offline or something that could cause human damage if possible as well. But the thing that struck me was, because, you don't think about this stuff, the amount of space junk that's out there, and the piece reads,
I mean, they worry about a chip of paint, because a chip of paint at 17,500 miles an hour could cause some damage. Yeah, it's a big problem. I mean, we don't even hear about it. And unless you monitored space station communications all the time, they raise and lower the station all the time. So they watch the big pieces of the space junk. And when one, orbits are not perfect, and when they think one is going to get close to the station, they will either raise or lower the station, its orbit, just so the space junk will miss it. It's one of the reasons that the U.S. protested so vehemently, both the Chinese and Russians testing anti-satellite weapons. We all have anti-satellite weapons. But to actually use one and destroy a satellite creates several thousand more pieces of space up there. And it is a problem. There are some companies actually working on it, trying to figure out ways to do it. Could you have a net and try and catch some of this stuff? But it's a real problem. There are a couple of websites out there where you can look at the space junk in a graphic, and it's pretty scary. In fact, sometimes the launches of SpaceX's Falcon 9 and other rockets are determinative as to whether or not there's an opening that you can get through and not too much space junk that you'd have to fly through.
And is the Sanford and Son theme playing in the background while they study these things?
If you could only take a pickup truck up there and, with a magnet and start collecting all this stuff, yeah.
So, you think in terms of spacewalks and the robotic arms that are used to fix things, it's not so simple that you hold the robotic arm out with a catcher's mitt at something at 17,000 miles, I suppose, miles an hour, I suppose.
Right, and you may not be coming at it's not necessarily on your orbit. So, you're here and it's, coming at an angle. So, how are you going to catch it? No, it's a mess. We need to clean it up. Need some smart people to try and figure out how to do that. I mean, a lot of people think that Starlink and Kuiper from Amazon are basically space junk. You get thousands of satellites providing internet connections to places in the world where you couldn't get high-speed internet, which is great. But, he's got a couple thousand satellites up there.
Yeah. Here's stupid question number 2. That orbit is full. If there's a lot of traffic, do I have an alternative? Can we go to a next higher up orbit, even though that changes flight plans and planning and engineering for everything?
There are already all kinds of different orbits, geospatial, low Earth orbit. Yes, we're already doing that all over the place. That like the Starlinks are much lower than station and other stuff. So yes, we use a bunch of them, but the space junk's not all in one orbit. It's all over the place. And
so basically what you're telling me is I just solved the problem.
How so?
Well, because I'm the one that pointed out that, for the regular citizenry that didn't know that you can go to a different orbit. In my mind, it's not being maximized by the people at NASA to say, what do we need to do, Steve?
If the space junk was in, and it does, it is in an orbit that we can predict where it's going to go next, but it doesn't mean that it's in the same orbit that we want it to be in, right? Where we can go catch it. So
no, I guess the
all over the place.
The comfort here would be the fact that space is really, really big.
Yeah, the one thing you have to hope for on the space junk, it could take a couple hundred years, is that orbits do degrade. You go from 17,500 miles to 400 miles to 300 miles to 200 miles to 17,000. And pretty soon you start to fall out of orbit, and then you burn up in the atmosphere. And that's the good news. It just takes a really long time.
Right. And there's a governmental agency that monitors this all the time, right?
All the time. Yep. They watch it. That's why the space station gets a warning or an indication that, why don't you raise your altitude by X number of meters to avoid this potential space junk. It's usually the big stuff. But it's the thing they worry about when people are out on spacewalks, too. It's why those spacesuits have so many layers. They call them micrometeorites, and we found out, the Russians thought that the Soyuz capsule had a leak in its cooling system, and they were thinking it was micrometeorites, a little bit of space junk, basically, or a piece of meteorite that came from someplace else that punctured its cooling system and sprung a leak and made it too hot to bring home a couple of cosmonauts and an astronaut. So it's a problem. You've identified a good problem.
Well,
I'm sorry, you don't get credit for the solution.
It's unbelievable. I'm the Rodney Dangerfield of space. No respect at all. A story that's only slightly less important now. Spaceballs, the sequel, is coming out.
Oh, God. I just watched Happy Gilmore 2.
Oh, I'm going to ask you about that as well. Spaceballs 2, and the subtitle, and I don't know if this is the actual working title or the title of the movie, Spaceballs 2, The Search for More Money. As only Mel Brooks can. So it's simple on this one. My question is, favorite Mel Brooks movie?
Blazing Saddles.
Gotta be. That's the one.
Age. It was, it was humor that would have, what year did that come out? Do you know?
74, maybe? Might have been 72.
Right. So, I'm a late teenager. I mean, come on. The guys around the campfire and having the beans. And
and also with one of the greatest surprise jokes of all time. The bad guys are riding through the desert, and they stop because a toll booth was put up, a 10-cent toll booth, and I think it was Slim Pickens was the actor, that turns around and says, somebody's got to ride back and get a shitload of dimes. Come on. That's fantastic.
Yes. Good movie.
So I'm with you. All right, you mentioned Happy Gilmore 2. I watched it as well. You and I are both avid golfers. One of the more amazing things in Happy Gilmore 2, it's fine. It's funny in spots. It's fun. But the cameos.
Oh, they're fantastic. It's the only, it is the reason, not the only, it is the reason to watch it. My wife and I talked about it this morning. We just watched it last night. And I said, what'd you think? And she goes, I thought it, it was good. And I thought that last third kind of, but the cameos, and her favorite is Scotty Scheffler. And she knew Scotty Scheffler's name, which was, this again when he got handcuffed.
See, I gotta go with Daly. because John Daly is actually a pretty significant character in this movie.
Yeah, he's everywhere.
Yeah, and Daly has the Letterman beard, or as Zach Galifianakis called Letterman, crystal meth Santa Claus. But Daly couldn't look more ridiculous, and he's got the long beard, and he plays a big role in this. But I mean, Nicholas is in this movie.
Yep, they all were. The cameos make the movie, and some of them were really good.
Well, I didn't understand, and we're not ruining the movie for you. I didn't understand why Fred Couples was always trying to get more dessert. Is that a thing that I missed?
I don't know. I don't know that about him. I mean, he's a little older than all the other guys. I didn't have a problem with it. It didn't ring a bell with me.
Right,
Whereas
same here.
The Scheffler joke made perfect sense. I mean, some of the jokes were really hilarious. I mean, they had a lot of fun. I thought JT did a really good job.
Sure.
It was fun.
Xander Schauffele, for whatever reason, made out to be a complete idiot and seemed to love every minute of it. Ricky Fowler's in it. Travis Kelce actually was
interesting. Yeah,
he was a good comedic actor, but he was basically playing a locker room musclehead.
Yeah, it was.
And Vern Lundquist doing the call. So anyway, we're saying you should watch, at the bare minimum, watch it for the cameos.
So we watched Happy Gilmore 1 and then 2. I mean, it was Happy Gilmore last night. And I was impressed with 1 again. I really liked 1. I like Julie Bowen, and so it was nice to see her again.
Yeah, she's great. And 1 was a good one. You know, we buried this a little bit, but the thing is, comedies do have messages. Some of them more subtle than others, and some get washed away by the jokes. The message in Blazing Saddles was racism is stupid. The message in Happy Gilmore 1, I'll get back to you. Happy Gilmore 2, I don't know that...
No, wait. Pause.
You got it?
Yeah, it was Grandma. I was keeping, I mean...
Oh, yeah, family.
Had to finally do something with his life to help his grandma.
There you go. Okay, so Happy Gilmore 2 is the one I'll say. We're not sure, but it's still worth a giggle.
To get the house back and to give the kids some. I mean, it was the same. It just didn't work. I didn't think it worked quite as well as it did in Happy Gilmore 1.
But if you really want to see, it's not a bad sequel. If you really want to see a terrible sequel, involving golf, go to Caddyshack 2.
Yeah, if you watch any golf and know any of these guys, or watch Teed Up or any of it,
yeah,
you'll enjoy it.
Story number 3. Americans spend nearly half their day online. Half their day. Caused me to give some personal thought to it. How much time am I online? I don't have a specific quantification of it. However, I do all my work on my phone. And the 5.4 hours a day that the average American spends online, I bet I'm close.
Really? Yeah. I try not to. I try to get away from it. But then, so... If I'm listening to your podcast while I'm walking, am I on the internet?
I suppose so. I think that has to be part of it.
Yeah, then I could certainly be in those numbers. I'm a big podcast consumer, and I am on... Listen, I'm a curious guy. I'm a news guy. This is what I did at ABC News. I mean, if I wasn't working a story, I was reading every day. 5 newspapers a day. Now
Sure.
I do it on the computer instead of flipping and washing my hands to get all the ink off every 35 minutes.
No, I totally get it, and I am the same way. But I do all my writing. I write on my phone, less than my laptop. It's all there.
Did you watch the Netflix show Adolescence?
No, but I hear it's fantastic.
It is, and I think and I haven't cried that much in a limited series in a long time. Very emotional. I don't want to give it away, but the parents ask themselves some questions, and these are one of the questions that they ask. You know, did we got them a computer? Did we let them spend too much time on the computer?
Right.
Should we have done more about it? And I got to tell you, we had some friends over, and their kids she's just turned 16, so he must be 14 or just turning 14. I have watched they live on the West Coast. Very good friends with their parents. I've watched them grow up on social media. Their parents post, they went on a trip to Italy, or they were doing this and something goofy and making Mickey Mouse pancakes. And so I hadn't seen the kids in several years, and they came to the house, and I said, I feel like I've watched you grow up through social media. And I explained X, Y, and Z. And to the 16-year-old, who is a wonderful young woman, I said, did you see X, Y? And she goes, yeah, I don't have a social media account. I don't have a
wow
smartphone. And a couple hours later, I said, I got to tell you, I don't know what you think about your parents and the fact that they have not like you had this social media account or a phone, but I think that's fantastic.
So do I.
Great. Yeah.
My one of my well, actually, my favorite agent of all time, and my current agent won't be upset about this, was a guy whose wife was fantastic, and she, in the 90s, when not everybody had a phone, had a rule: you come to our house for dinner. I have a wicker basket. You put your phone in the basket. You get it back when you leave. And you hear about those, but they're not being done enough. And, you know, you go out to dinner, I go out to dinner. What do you see? You see tables of people not talking.
I saw a family, I guess there were 5 of them, including the parents, and every one of them was on a phone. The one that gets me is, I'm not as pleasant about this, is driving down the road and the person in front of me, they're not keeping constant speed, right? It's like,
yeah.
And it's like, I go around them and I tell my wife, they're on their phone, and look over, on their phone. I don't understand what's so important.
That it has to be done at that moment. Well, the other thing too is in a neighborhood, and I'm sure you have this as well, every single day, there is somebody in front of you at a stop sign or at a light that doesn't leave when it's their turn.
Yep.
And you have to hit the horn.
I have less trouble with that. I don't like it. I do tap on the horn. But if there's one place I want them to look at their phone, it's at
while the car's moving. I have one more question to ask related. This is it. And it relates to your old job in network news. I still consume news in multiple platforms, including network news. I watch as much network news as I used to. But correct me if I'm wrong, that's a 22-minute format, right? 22 minutes minus commercials?
21:30, but okay.
21:30. There's a new thing that's going on, and there's a consultancy called Frank Magid in Iowa, of all places.
They've been around forever. They actually...
And still the big dogs in TV news consultancies. And I believe they probably have their hand in this. But all 3 network newscasts now open by previewing stories for what feels like 6 or 7 minutes. And it's like the movie trailers now.
2.5 minutes.
Where you go to the movies and you see 15 minutes of trailers or 20 minutes of trailers, previews before the movie starts. You're saying it's 2.5 minutes. But what is my incentive to watch the news in an ADD society when you've just previewed the entire newscast?
You're not wrong. And I'm going to say some things here that I probably shouldn't say on something that's going public. One newscast is not doing that. That is the CBS Evening News.
Oh, they're not doing it. Okay.
A friend of mine, Maurice Dubois, is one of the co-anchors with...
And he does a great job.
John Dickerson. I've actually... I think they make a mistake by not doing some headlines. I agree with you that the headlines on the other 2, one is much longer than the other, are far too long. But I did learn the lesson at ABC News that headlines and teases are extremely important to keep somebody around. It's one of my... If I don't like the first story that you're doing, and you haven't told me that there's something you're going to do 7 or 8 minutes down the line. Right. So I'm all for headlines. I'm all for teases. Steve, we have this discussion in our house almost every night. Unfortunately, I have a DVR with a 1-minute advance. So when I start one of the newscasts, I hit it 3 times. And then the show starts, and that's what I watch.
There you go.
I don't. You're right. It's way too much. And Maurice, his argument was it gives us more news time, and I'm like, I agree with that, and I want more news. But there's got to be a happy medium. I mean, if you look the way shows teased and did headlines 15 years ago, I think you would have been totally fine with it. You know, 35 seconds of headlines. You do the same thing in your show. You tell me what's coming up. You tell me, X, Y, and Z, and it's the same thing. It's too much. And I think a lot of people feel that way.
Yeah, and I think, you can correct me again if I'm wrong, but I think NBC is the longer of the 2 between NBC and ABC.
I would take a stopwatch to you, and I would bet you a round of golf on that.
Is that right? Okay. And we didn't have time to get to the Mile High Club couple who didn't even have the decency to try to stuff themselves into the bathroom that were arrested recently.
I didn't hear about that story. You want to give me details?
Well, the reason I bring it up is simply this. If you've flown at all in the last several years, you know that people are getting bigger and spaces are getting smaller. I have no idea how two people could have sex in an airplane bathroom.
Or you said they didn't go to the bathroom.
No.
And it's just like the seats are much smaller too.
Right.
Yeah, I'm not gonna touch that one. I did see the people getting out of the plane just the other day. That would the landing gear, smoke and fire on takeoff. They abort the takeoff, and watching people come down the slide with their suitcases was
Good Lord.
crazy. Leave it behind. I got to tell you, I probably would throw if I had my knapsack at my feet, I'd probably throw it on my shoulders and slide down, even though they tell you to leave everything. But suitcase.
Well, you see it all the time when you fly, right? People line up because they've got to be the first on the plane and the earliest on the plane. The minute the plane lands, I got to be the first off the plane. I got to get off the plane.
Hey, don't talk about me that way, okay? Would you stop that, Cochran?
Please subscribe and follow and read my friend David Kerley on Substack. Spelled that Kerley way, which is?
Kerley. So it's David Kerley, one word, .substack.com.
And
working on the Kerley family name a little more, actually.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I noticed there's lots of Kerleys there, so accept no substitutes, go with David.
Well, you've heard my joke before, right?
I don't know.
CURs. We came in 1638. The KERLEYs came in 1638. The CURLEYs came later, but they had way more babies.
Right. That's how you win in the ultimate fight.
That's true.
Thank you, my friend. I appreciate you doing
Always a pleasure, Steve. Love chatting and catching up.
Be well.
Hey, hope you enjoyed that. I wasn't dozing off. I was listening. Anything but politics with the great David Kerley. I actually learned something in that podcast, and it's not supposed to be educational, but sometimes we can't help ourselves. So glad you're here. Thanks for listening. Tell your friends, subscribe and follow wherever you get your podcasts, and follow me on social media, wherever you do that. Live from my office is the YouTube channel as well. And Substack is where I write new and fascinating things all the time, and it has a little politics there. And thanks for the support. Appreciate it as always. And thanks to Ross Cochran for producing all of this. You've been listening and watching Anything But Politics, a service from Live from My Office and Monkey Run Productions. See you later in the week on Live from My Office.